click it now. And we're live, I think, right on the nose, 12 noon. Happy holidays, everyone. This is ASC Webinar. ASC Webinar Series, episode 16, How to Shape Your Social Sphere. And I'm going to turn it over to Gary so I can check the tech.
Yes, hey, what's happening, everybody? Whether you're watching this live or the replay, we are so happy to have you here to connect with us. And we have a special guest. We're going to introduce him in just a moment, but I just want to take a moment to just acknowledge you, to say that, as of this recording, it is the end of 2020, end of a year that has been, I don't know, has its ups and downs. But, at the end of each year, we like to talk about, how can we reflect and how can we learn? And one of the things that, in the ASC Accountability Success Circle, that we hear a lot about is that social sphere. There are so many different environments, and every environment shapes who you are. The saying, you're the average of the 5 to 7 people that you spend the most time with. And that is either people in person or people virtually or people via books, things that you consume. And so we want to, talk about how you can be intentional and how you can shape that so that you can get the most out of, your experience regardless, whether you are in a virtual environment, like how we have been mostly for the last 9 months, or, as you start to gather in person, how can you make sure that the people that you want to spend time with, you are making time for them. And we have some amazing strategies and some philosophies around that. And then the things that are draining your energy, that are draining your mojo, that are making you feel more grumpy and stuff like that. How can you put some things in place to mitigate that? So, over the next 45, 50 minutes, we're going to be talking about that, about energy, how you can control the situation. We're just going to get down into it. So I'm super excited. And so I think we should start by introducing our guest. This is super cool because I'm a big fan. We've connected over the last couple of years, and our guest, Albert Kaufman. Albert, how about you just take a moment, give us your top 10 of who you are, just so if people watching aren't familiar with your amazingness, they can get like the cliff notes.
Sure. Let's see. My top 10. I like lists like that. Well, I live in Portland, Oregon. I'm 59. I'm a musician. I'm a activist. I also work on making a lot of music. So I try to mix activism, music, marketing in a way that's fun for me and fun for other people. And in terms of the friends question, I travel in a lot of different circles. I feel very unique and very privileged and very grateful for the ability to have just doused myself in various social circles and various festival worlds and various conference worlds. So I have a lot of different worlds that I travel in. And so I'm well known by many.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah. And we're so happy to have you. When Apryl and I, when we were talking about what we wanted to cover in this webinar, you just sort of popped up because again, for the things that you've been doing, just ever since I know you, it's very intentional. It's all about cultivating an amazing community. And we're gonna get into that. I don't want to spoil anything.
And one of the things too, as we are diving into, for those of you who don't know about the Accountability Success Circle, we have monthly themes, and in celebration of the holidays, we thought that we would focus on togetherness. And so this is, all about community, really, especially in a time when we can't all be in each other's physical spaces together, we need to still figure out a way to be together. And so I think that a great conversation here about making sure that who these people are that are in your circle are, the people that you want to be around. And just like maybe you want to be a part of the accountability success circle, but we'll talk more about that later. So,
Yes.
all right. So where should we start? Sorry, Gary, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Let's, start at the beginning, the why. Like, why, especially in this day and age, why is it important to be intentional on shaping your social sphere? I think that's like what we should, sort of highlight that, just to set a primer of like why, why this is important, and it's going to really just set us up for, especially when we get into the strategies and we start talking about some of the specifics and some of the philosophies that we have. Like, why should someone even care about that? Like, doesn't
Yeah.
it just come naturally? Like, shouldn't you you know, just wake up and everything's hunky dory? Like,
Yeah. I mean, when I think about this, I think about when, as growing up, our community tends to be, in our proximity, right? The people we go to school with, our parents' friends, that kind of shapes our social sphere. And as we grow and get older, you know, the schools get bigger, and then you get to college and people are traveling from here and there, and you're getting immersed into different um different types of people that are from different places. And there's a lot more diversity as you continue to grow, and depending on how you branch out, that all shapes who you are. But I also think that, especially as you get older and it's harder to find those people who are like your people, you have to be really intentional about what you're looking for. I mean, it's almost kind of like looking for a partner, right? A romantic
yep,
partner. You need to know what you're looking for so that you can be happy, right? And I think that for me, why is this important is because we want to have enriched relationships in our life that are going to make the quality of what we're experiencing the best that it can be. And so why not? Why not care about these things? Albert, do you have anything that you want to share from your perspective?
Yeah, your thoughts have been prompting some ideas on my end. And I think the first time that I really recognized that you could be more intentional around friend setting, friend attracting, was listening to Tim Ferriss's podcasts. He had on a couple of different people who talked very much about having an agenda around that instead of just having it be random. I think, like you said, much of our time in life has been spent kind of gathering friends somewhat willy-nilly. Oh, I went to this dance, and so I met this friend, and this person I met at a party, and like that. And over time, I've just really gotten clear that it's possible to have a friendship circle or circles that are filled with people who who provide friendship, but also maybe provide other things too, like people who you end up running businesses with, or partners that you have, or musician friends who you make music with. And given that there are these tools out there that kind of make the finding and interacting with people so much easier, using them as a way to create a friendship circle or a network for yourself has never been more accessible. I don't know, the thought came to me to say the word easier, but it's not necessarily easy, because you're still having to sort, you're still having to say goodbye to some people. So, you have your ups and fun about it. And then there's also challenges about it when like something doesn't work out, or you have to work things through like you do with any relationships. But given that we have all sorts of interesting tools out there, I've been experimenting with them, and we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, as we go along. But I have some real fun. I have a very fun thing that I'm considering right now that I want to share with you. And
So
that,
excited.
we can get into it in a little bit. I have a feeling there will be a perfect place to bring it up, but that's a little bit of an answer to
cool.
your question.
Yay. Yes, and one thing I want to add, to piggyback what you both said, is before the sort of belief was, yeah, these are the people I went to school with, these are people I went to college with, or whatever the case might be. These people I work with, they're in your proximity, and it is what it is. If you don't like it, you're the problem. This is the community, and this is how we act. And it was interesting because what is his name? Aziz Ansari, in his book Modern Romance, he was talking about how things have changed with partners, especially because of the internet and whatnot. Before, there were studies to show that most people that got married, they were in a small proximity of each other. They either grew up in the same neighborhood or whatever. But now, because of the internet and the fact that we can connect with people all over the world at any time of the day, it's awesome, because for those people that felt like those black sheeps, the outsiders, you can actually find your tribe.
Mhm.
And that reminded me of the book by Daybreaker founder Radha Agrawal, her book Belong, Find Your People, Create Community, and Live a More Connected Life. She had a similar experience where after a while, the people that she were in her sort of proximity inner circle, that she went to school with and whatnot, they were still staying out late drinking and stuff like that, and that's just like, it wasn't her thing, and she wanted to do something different. So she took stock, she took inventory of what are her values, what are the things that she cares about, and then she went and started to make some shifts. And we're going to talk about like some of the ways that you can do that. So if you feel like a square peg in a round hole, where the people that at one point you were connected with, and you were in the same sort of circles and you did the same things, and now you're feeling like, man, our views do not align at all, and you just feel aggravated, and you like, we're going to talk about energy in just a moment, but like, you feel like your energy's zapped. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, definitely not. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's something wrong with the relationship, right? Too. I mean, that was something that I had to learn the very hard way. I've lost some friends in my life as I've grown and evolved, and still trying to cling on to the people who, I knew because, through affiliation of something. We went to college together, we went to high school together, and some of those relationships didn't survive. And it's very hurtful, especially because I dive super deep in a lot of my relationships. And to be able to let go of something, not because something went wrong, but because we're just in different priorities and different values in life at this time. And doesn't mean that you can't, wrap things back up again, and catch back up where you left off, somewhere down the road. But it's definitely something that is just a part of life. So,
Mhm.
yay.
I would say also an aspect of all of this that's really different right now, given COVID, is that we keep bringing up the fact that many of our friends are people who live nearby us. Well, everything because of COVID has changed in that respect for the time being, and I imagine that that will shift back to how we were before. But many of the things that I'm involved in now, I could be having my neighbor be a part of it, but actually a person in Tokyo is in a way just as close to me as they are. And I don't think that people have, some communities have really moved into that space where, for instance, my ecstatic dance community, still a lot of the people are dancing together on Sundays via Zoom. And it's a lot of the same faces that I would normally dance with. But some dance communities and some meditation communities and some co-counseling worlds have said, well, wait, we're not limited anymore to the community that was a part of this experience. Let's open it up to anyone who wants to come. And so I've been on dances with people all around the world. I've been on sort of more speed dating type things that have, and a little bit beyond that, that have just really been opened their arms to and marketed to and purposely reached out to expand. And it's been super interesting. And I think, we're all benefiting from having, like, just like the World Domination Summit, for instance, is a place where people from all over the world come to Portland. to have this, incredible experience for a week. The same thing is potentially happening in a lot of communities where the leadership or somebody has stepped forward and said, hey, there's no reason why we just have to limit this to the people who were doing it before. Let's open the doors. And I think that's led to, the possibility for those of us who are interested to expand our friendship circles internationally. And I know the two of you have been doing that for years. And there's ways that I've been doing it as well. But I think there's more of a global move in that direction. And I think the really interesting part of it is I've been spending a couple of years developing a system for people who move to a new place to start an instant community using Nextdoor. So Nextdoor is a platform like Facebook, but it's organized locally. So you reach out to people who are next door, who are in your community, who are in your neighborhood. And my idea was, you sort of start to keep an eye on who are the people who fan your flames in your local community, and you start building a list and then maybe bring people together for a meal. And I've done this and it was working brilliantly. And now, because of not being able to gather, that project is a little bit on hold, though I keep connected with those people through a newsletter that I send them. But the concept of that now has kind of broken open for me, and I'm realizing, at least for the moment, that doesn't necessarily make as much sense because of the lack of physical gathering. So it's interesting sometimes too, you try something, or you create a game, or you create a pathway, and then the pathway gets blocked. And then you have to shift, and you have to think anew about what you're doing. But yeah, given the tools that are out there, everyone could have a friendship circle that just perfectly fits them, like challenges them, challenges you. I see you guys are talking to an audience, not just each other. Challenges you and brings you joy. And you don't have to settle for a friendship circle or a lack of one that doesn't float your boat. There's quite a lot of good possibilities right now.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes.
We were talking a little bit about energy before, and I want to dive into that a little bit now. I think a lot of the reason that we wanted to have this conversation is because you can have social contacts that are draining, and we'll talk about, just even in the last few months, Facebook, and I think this has been something that's been growing and growing over the years. But for me personally, Facebook has just become a place where, I can't even see, the things that I would want to see. And I have a lot of cleanup that I have to do, but it's draining my energy to even just go on there because there's so many notifications. It takes effort to, have things organized. And, I have let my Facebook circle, like, I guess the guidelines by which I engage in relationships with people online or however, the rules are ambiguous, and I'm seeing a lot of mishmash, things that I don't want to see, things that I don't need to see, things that, things from people I don't even know. And I know what the root of that was, and that was a decision that I made to just test, and it's kind of gone awry. But examples like that, where even just, Facebook is a wonderful platform where we can all speak our truth and speak our minds, but it has also become a very toxic place that drains your energy. And so when you think about, the time and energy that we all have as human beings, we don't have a lot, right? Especially if we are ambitious people who have goals that we want to accomplish, which are pretty much everybody in the accountability success circle, and which is why we chose to take the ASC off the Facebook platform and have our own, so that we could be, taken away from the distractions of people just trying to be social and using Facebook as their every mode of communication. We brought together a community of people that want to focus on accomplishing the goals that matter most to them in a positive environment. And so, what do we do? The one thing that I'm concerned about in terms of energy is that, there are two different types of communities that exist, right? There's the communities that you electively choose to be around because they fill your energy, they fill your cup, they make you happy, they make you feel more fulfilled, they enhance your overall life experience. But when you tend to do that and kind of, you know, curtail your circles to the people that you want to see, we have to be very careful about the fact that there are also people that exist out there that maybe aren't in alignment with us 100% but still exist in the world. So we have to still understand that, like, I wanted to call it like the difference between like the social sphere and the news or the information sphere, where there's still other people who, you know, maybe you just don't see eye to eye and you choose not to keep them in your circle, but they're still there. And so how do we protect our energy, and fill ourselves with the social circles that bring us joy, while also not forgetting the fact that, you know, we're kind of pushing people out of our bubble, right? Like, you know, you're going to get a filtered view of what you want to see, and it might not always be like the true reality of what's out in the world. So I just was curious to see what you guys thought about that, because that's been something where I'm like, I want to be open
Yes.
minded, but, you know, I also want to be happy. So how do you find the balance?
Mhm.
Who
Yeah,
wants to go
Albert,
first?
please.
Okay. Well, a couple of thoughts came to mind. One is that you're talking when you're talking about like a next sphere of people who are there and who are in your world and or who are in, you know, on some level your network. There's a discussion going on around weak ties and how COVID has really taken a hit at weak ties, because those are the people who you see once a year or twice a year, see them in the supermarket, you say hello, it's nice, it's cordial, but you don't necessarily have anything more than that going on. Well, those people are, they're like disappearing from the edges in a way. And I think there are things that one can do to sort of like keep that crew of people still somewhat in your sphere. One way I do it is I throw parties and I make them very open-ended, and I use Jan Keck's Ask Deep Questions deck. I had a party this week and I had about 40 people there, and I'd say about 30 of them were people who aren't really close in with me, but who are close in with maybe the other 10 people who were there. And so there are ways to still keep some of that energy going. In terms of, like you talked about Facebook, I've really moved from two things. I've moved towards using groups instead of using sort of the news feed as much of anything. And in groups, I can have, like, whether it's social or whether it's I'm trying to get something done with people, I'm very much into that. And ASC is a good example of a place where you can come together and grapple with something together with other people, versus just sort of like this mindless, you know, news feed of random things that are coming your way. Some of them are very lovely. And in terms of like making the news feed even better, or just your Facebook experience better, and maybe this is a way to think about the rest of our social lives as well, is I just did a huge culling of my Facebook friends. Like you, April,
Yeah.
I had let the door open to everybody and anybody starting when Facebook started and I first joined, which was like 12 or 13 years ago. I started by teaching people how to use Facebook. And so I was teaching marketing classes in my living room and people would come with their laptops. And so I was always just like more and more and more. And eventually I got up to 4,400 friends. And so you can imagine my feed was just really very random and full of people who I have never met. And, you know, so one day I just got started and I started by cutting down 700 people. And I started to notice that the experience in my newsfeed was getting richer. And so I just kept cutting, and I've gotten down now to 700 people from 4,400 people. And I've had a few people who've like come back towards me and said, hey, I noticed we're not friends anymore. I'd like to be. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. You know, if there's a good reason. But I'm trying to keep that number at that number and trying to even bring it down more. And I've noticed my newsfeed is much richer. It's much more full of posts by actual closer friends. And I'm sure that's what Facebook sort of had in mind when they started it, not to make it something where you had 5,000 people and were, in the midst of sort of a bigger universe like that, it's just sort of a time wasting thing. And unless you're a celebrity, in which case, sure, have 5,000 people on your friend feed and like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, some thoughts.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to point out in this book, Prime to Perform. So it talks about the science of total motivation. So it's a work related book, um, that is talking about like how we can perform at our best. But one of the things that they talk about is communities, and we as a species are not capable of curating and managing relationships over 150 people, because most villages are 150 people, and within each of those 150 people, there are smaller spheres. So actually, no. Let me reverse that. The biggest tribes are like 300 plus, and then we have another sphere of half that, like 150, 120 to 150, and then our close knit people max is like 40 people. And to what Albert's talking about, with Facebook, again, when it came out, I don't know, like, was it 20 years ago or something like that, or almost 20 years ago? We didn't, it was just something that just went, and we weren't necessarily intentional. Same thing. Um,
Mhm.
the people, same for me, like the people that I connected with when I first started, of course, it was like the people I went to high school with and stuff, because that was like the thing of like, oh, keeping up with those people. And then that got rid of like high school reunions and stuff like that. But then you started connecting with the people that you worked with, and maybe you changed jobs a few times, and like me, like I was hardcore in digital marketing, and so like I would go to all these industry conferences I would either speak or be at, and I would just connect with people on there. And then it just starts growing, and we're not paying attention to that because it is what it is. No one ever said, oh hey, ever so often you should probably go and trim that, a bit. And then you're right. And then you blink, and then you're like, who are these
3,000
people?
people later.
Yeah. And again, that number is, whatever it is for you. Like, depends on how, like, involved you are on these platforms. But I bet you everyone's growth has been exponential. And the people on there and their views and the things that they share, I bet you a good percentage of them you probably wouldn't even care about in general. So why are you inviting that like into like the things that are influencing you? And especially because most of the people, when they're on these platforms, what do? You're scrolling through this. You're trying to like find out what's going on. And whether you are consciously reading it or not, that information is seeping into your unconscious sphere. And there's some studies out there that show, and that's why for me, I've been, trying to have a practice of not like hopping on social media or checking email or anything like that until like I've done some things to like sort of fill my cup, because they say that there is a study that was done with people. They were trying to understand like their behavior on social media and email, and then their moods. And they found that people that would go on social media before 9 a.m.
Mm.
reported having a bad day, that lasted up to 8 hours after like being on the platform. And then, but when they asked them about what they consumed, they like, well, I don't know, I'm just scrolling. But again, especially in 2020, with all that's going on, that stuff will start to seep into it. And then you don't even know why you're upset. But then again, it has a lasting impact. And again, it's all that stuff that is just there that we haven't been intentional about. So I love, Albert's story about like how, he just took a moment, like, time out, let me pull back a little bit, because again, prior to social media, if you think about interacting with people, like it's hard for me even to like think about like pre-social media and stuff like that. But like people that you interacted with was probably few and far between. Like maybe you had some work people, but you can get away from them. Like after work, like you're like, all right, cool. Shannon, man, she's too much to handle. But you know what? I don't have to deal with her every day. I don't necessarily have to hear her, but definitely after work, you go home. The family, that you have issues with, Uncle Charlie, who has his extreme views and, and whatnot. Like you probably only see Uncle Charlie maybe once or twice a year, if that. and then like, your neighbors and stuff like that. Maybe it's just a quick, hey, how's it going? So prior to that, like, and then you can choose to read the newspaper or not. So like, it's not being bombarded. So like, I feel like our well-being before that was just more even keel. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah. I think too, there's the piece of, okay, so making sure that the and I want to definitely talk about, how to go about this, because I think there's a lot of different ways to, create your social sphere, whether it is, on social media. And I know that that's kind of the direction where, or this is kind of like the source of this, how this conversation originated in the first place. And because of the fact that we are so virtual right now, but this can also apply to in-person settings as well. And trying to decide, like when we can all see each other again in person, what choices do we make about who we interact with in the physical sense. But going back to the energy piece, I think the important thing that you need to think about is that, like, we're encouraging you to create your social bubbles that make you feel good, because these are the things that should be, in some senses, our entertainment, to be able to connect to the people that we care about and whatnot. We're not saying that it's wrong to connect and get yourself to 5,000 friends. If you want to do that, you absolutely can, and that's okay, as long as it's not bothering you. But if you are feeling this pull where, whatever your social circles are, you're finding yourself being triggered, this is a great opportunity to think about, what in this scenario, in this social sphere, is draining my energy, and you have the opportunity to, kindly bow out of that connection. And not to say that it's, it can always be there. And of course, don't block yourself from the reality that there are people in the world who tend to carry a little bit more negativity, and we have to have compassion towards those people. But it's not necessarily a bad thing to just have your little slice of heaven on social media, especially if you're going to spend some significant time there. So that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure. Of course, inform yourself about other people's perspectives, stay open-minded, all of those things, but don't, it doesn't mean that you have to, that it's wrong for you to not have, the perspectives that you want to see, because I mean, and that's just my opinion. Do you guys agree or disagree? I'm not sure.
I had a thought about, and something to tap into regarding that, is that there are tools within Facebook and other social media where you can do things like, let's say you can unfollow somebody. So you're still connected with them as friends,
Yeah.
but you stop seeing what they're posting. So you still kind of retain some connection, but yet it's a little bit looser one.
Yeah.
There's also seeing people's stuff first. So for instance, if you have a group of 5 people who you're most close to, and you always want to see everything they post, you say, you set their feed within your feed to be something that always shows first. I also use a tool called Facebook Purity, which allows me to really customize Facebook in ways that you wouldn't believe are possible. You can do things like filter out certain words. You can change the timeline. So instead of it showing you whatever Facebook's algorithm wants to show you, you can have it show you the most recent posts and have that permanently set. So Facebook Purity is like an awesome tool.
Yeah.
And then, we haven't really talked about it, but like for some reason, my mind went to, like, what are friends for, and what is this all about? And like, I think partly it's, we have to also remember that friends are also people who we may want to count on for things. And so we may also want to be cultivating our own ability to be count onable. And, there's ways to do that. These are kind of like a little bit more, it's like friendship 101 or friendship 102. Like friendship 102 to me is, I'm going to start reaching out and like kind of, I think of it as like spinning my friends, like making sure that like I do fun things to cheer them up or whatever. So for instance, like yesterday, a friend of mine, a good example of this, I have a friend named, her Burning Man name is Misdirection. And it's just she's a brilliant person. She lives up in Seattle, and she creates just gorgeous, magical drinking glasses called Wiley Ware. And yesterday, she, through a friend, sent me a box of Wiley Ware, some which I had ordered, but some which she just wanted to send me because they were seconds and they were gorgeous. And just seeing this box come into my house, and then she also included like a bunch of crazy things like the whole Earth catalog, which who the heck is going to read this? You know, this is the whole Earth catalog. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but it's just ridiculous. It's this huge, encyclopedia of information. And when I saw that, I was like, it's just bizarre. It just tickled it tickled my fancy. So I think there's, friendship is just such a great topic. I really love thinking about it. And I think there's that aspect of it that where we can make it sort of richer for ourselves and for others by thinking about, making a list, let's say, who are your top 10 or 20 people in your life? Is that, and then, check in on that list 6 months later. Is it still the same 10 or 20 people? Do you want to send them a card right now? Now's a great time for a holiday card. So there's things you can do to kind of like enrich your own experience of friendship, but also enrich the lives of the people who you consider your friends, and to keep them, happy and tickled, and, just to make it a more fun experience. And in that vein, I'll share one thing that I've been kind of mulling over. I love curating events, and I love curating ideas. And so I've got this idea kind of ruminating in my mind of doing a Zoom call, which is going to be sort of who are my 10 or 20 top people. And I want to break them up into breakout rooms a few times so that, groups of 3 of my friends who may or may not know each other from different circles, but who I think of as like my just favorite people. And I want to bring them together as much as they want to come together, and have them just have an exquisite time. And that's kind of how I'm a big party thrower. And I just love having people over. I love entertaining. That's why the Wiley Ware glasses figure in big in my life, because they're just make parties a lot more fun. But I love that feeling of having like 20 or 30 people roaming around the house, meeting one another, and suddenly going, oh my God, you're that person, or oh my God, you're this person who will be my new friend. And people often come back to me and say, oh, I've made new friends through you. And that's also a use of Facebook. It's a great way to connect people. I've been doing that a bunch lately, of just saying like, oh, you over here, you just moved to Bend, Oregon. You should meet my friend who lives in Bend, Oregon. Oh, you just moved to Albuquerque. I've got friends in Albuquerque that you should totally meet. And even though they can't necessarily meet in person, I can click on the camera button and do a video chat with the three of us, and just do an instant introduction. And I've been having a lot of fun with that.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to my coffee ramble.
Yeah, I love it. What was it? Well, do we want to go into the strategies of this is like the bread and butter of where we're headed to, and why this is so important. I think a lot of times people will be like, okay, well, maybe I, just kept on clicking add friend, or I just accepted requests that came my way, and now I have a social media, my social media platform is just, it doesn't feel all nice and fluffy. So how do I get it to be nice and fluffy? And then, and as a reminder, right, you're creating your little slice of entertainment through, the connections that you have with other people. This is not to discredit, the realities of what else is going on for other people in the world that don't end up being in your little slice. There's obviously, great ways to inform yourself on, what is going on in the world through media, and just continuing to be open-minded to meeting new people and seeing if they, make your cut. But how do you actually clean up your social media accounts? So I just want to start by saying that, I've done, in the past, there's been a time, I think it was 2012, I cut my friend list down to 100 people from 700 back then, when that was a lot. And I cut people that I knew. people got upset with me, and I had this rule where I was just, I didn't want social media to be an excuse for having in-person conversation. I had a lot of friends that just kind of defaulted to that, and I said, these are the people who I want to just make sure that they see like the day-to-day that's going on, because I don't get to see them all the time, or we do see each other, but they can track me more closely, or I have deep relationships with them. For other people, like let's it was an opportunity to reinvigorate relationships and whatnot. And eventually, I don't even know how many friends I have on Facebook right now, but I don't know all of them. It's exactly these conferences or these engagements that I do where, I meet somebody, or I think I meet someone. I just want to be open-minded to connecting, because sometimes you never know what might happen from a random connection. But then it kind of went awry. And I went through the process of thinking, like, I'm going to clean all my social media. So I started with, things that were a little bit easier. I don't follow a lot of people on Instagram already. So, I like the fact that, people can follow you all they want, and you can pick the people that you follow, and it doesn't have to be like a two-way thing. But then of course, sometimes you don't realize that somebody is following you and that you want to follow them back. So that's one thing. I really then moved to LinkedIn because, this is a more professional platform, and I was told at some point, you should just accept everybody because you just never know where that could lead, especially if you're an entrepreneur, which I agreed with for a certain point. But then I started connecting with people that would then try to sell me right away, which I didn't like. And then the other piece was that other friends of mine would accept other connections because I was connected to them, and I had no idea who these people truly were and didn't want to vouch for them. So I created some rules around who I connect with on LinkedIn, such as, I need to at least know how we are connected and be able to vouch for you in some respect, or I'm just not going, I'm not going to opt into random connections there. Then it goes to Facebook, which is like the bigger evil. But I think no matter what platform you choose, I think that there's like three fundamental steps, and then we can get into nitty gritty, and I'll let you guys chime in. But number one is that, like, you have to think about what you want your like social media connections to look like in terms of how you want them to, how you want it to make you feel, what types of connections, and start to create these rules and guidelines around, like, this is the type of stuff I wanted to see. When I started adding people over that core 100 on Facebook, I said, you have to be positive. You have to have some level of positivity, and I'll take a look at your profile. Even if I don't know you, I'll be open to it if you bring positive energy. And then it kind of got, the rules kind of got muddied somewhere in the process. And so I have to redefine this. So this is kind of helpful to me too, because I'm like, I need to really think about, like, what do I want Facebook to be for me, or whatever platform it is. And then number two is set those guidelines. And then start, reevaluating, do a big reevaluation of who is on that list, and, be willing to, say, no, thank you for some, if it just doesn't meet your rules. And things can always change, right? The third step for me, I think, is to just be able to renegotiate with yourself, like, how am I, and reflect on how, the modified social media platform for you is doing. Do you feel like you're missing out on something? Did you accidentally let go of somebody that you're like, I miss that person, I want them back? You can always renegotiate that stuff. So it's a very, ask yourself what's working, what's not, make some new guidelines and rules, make the changes, and then revisit again in 3 months. So those are my tips, and at a high level, that you can apply to any social arena, whether it's in person or on socials. What tips do you guys have?
Do you want me to jump in, Gary, or you got something?
Please.
Okay. Well, what first came to my mind was you delete the dead people.
Oh.
Which
I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, it's
I
funny.
have one or
I
two.
have no. I have when I went through my culling of about 3,000 people, I noticed that there were 4 or 5 people who had passed away. But there are actually a couple of people who I still can keep the friendship with, who have passed away, who they're just not dead to me yet, and maybe never will be. And so, and other people I think feel the same way. I have this one friend who's kind of like a high priestess, and many people still post on her wall and remember her. And I'm not leaving that relationship. But well, and an interesting thing that came to my mind was you were talking about LinkedIn, and I have for the longest time wondered what the value of LinkedIn is.
I
I,
don't
I
use it that
know
much, to be
I
honest.
know people use it, and I know, if I was looking for a job in a particular industry, maybe, to network to try to find my way into something. But in general, the news feed and so much of LinkedIn has felt very useless to me. And yet at the same time, I treated it the same way as I did with Facebook, everybody in the pool. And I've decided, since I like to experiment with things, that I'm going to keep going in that direction with LinkedIn. So I think now I'm up to like 5,200 people. And I'm not exactly sure what the value of that is. LinkedIn used to be great for, as a marketer, I could export all of my contacts in LinkedIn and had the email addresses for everybody. And about 2 years ago, they changed that and they stopped that from happening. But a new thing that's interesting about LinkedIn is they have started this new thing called Lunch Club, and I've been inviting people to it because I've been finding some use of it from it. And what it does is it allows you to, it sets you up with sort of a random-ish stranger. You can choose some parameters, and like you can choose, okay, I want to meet people in my town of Portland, and I want to meet people in marketing. So lately I've been having one-on-ones with people who are part of the Lunch Club. And I've been inviting everybody who I'm friends with or who I'm connected with in LinkedIn to join Lunch Club. I wasn't doing that at first. At first I was just like, oh, enjoying Lunch Club for myself. But then I started to invite people. And then my housemate forwarded to me an email that she had got that said, you just Albert just recently had a lunch date with so and so, and it went like this. And when I saw that and realized that it was sending automatically emails to everyone who I had invited, who had accepted my invitation, my marketing mind just started to go into overdrive. And so I started to invite everyone on LinkedIn. I just sit there. It's almost like texting voters in Georgia. I just sit there and hit the return. I could show it to you. It's hilarious. But not only am I inviting the people, but I'm also including a little message about something that I've written recently. And so there's that piece of it that's going out to them. And then there's also the piece of, when I have a one-on-one lunch club meeting with somebody, I usually write up a review of my experience with them. And then that's going out to people as well. And oftentimes within that, I'm including something that I'm up to. And it's just been a very interesting, like, oh my God, finally, after 10 years of using LinkedIn, there's something useful that
Yeah.
this platform is offering me. So that's
Yeah.
been fun.
And you bring up a good point too, because I think that there are some people who use social media as a business tool if they're entrepreneurs or run their own business. And that's also something that, as a person who is connected to these people, you have to make the decision of like, do you want this to be something that's more personal, or do you want something to be more business focused? And you can choose different platforms for different things. I have an Instagram that is for my business, but it has become very personal, because my business is very personal, to me, and it's all about life empowerment and my own journey and setting that example. And so sometimes, just as long as you are making, you are defining what you want to put out and what you want to see, that can be a thing. There, you could have a friend who you want to be connected to, but all they do is post stuff about selling the thing that you're not really interested in, and they don't talk about personal stuff. And you might say like, hey, I'm going to unfriend you on Facebook, but like I want to still stay in touch, because I like you as a person, and like, can we connect in some other way? There's always that opportunity too to say like, don't be offended that I'm unfriending you. Just I really want to be more intentional about the time that I'm spending on Facebook, whatever platform it is. And I want to focus on connecting to, you can even ask them, do you have a personal profile that I can connect to so that we can stay connected as people? But I'm using this platform for XYZ purpose. So Gary, what do you got?
Yeah. You all had some amazing sort of ideas. To sum it up, and we've been saying this all along, is it's all about intentionality. Whereas these platforms might have been a little bit haphazard, in the beginning phases, and as we become accustomed to using them all the time. I'm not going to get into the addiction stuff yet. That's for another conversation, especially as we've seen, um, the social network and whatnot. But since it is something that we use time and time again, if you think about it, we have our devices with us. Sometimes we spend more time with our devices than we spend with the people that we're in relationships, or like physical relationships with. Um, think about like how much time you spend on these platforms. And again, it's not my place to say what is a good amount of time or not. That's for you. Since you are spending time in those platforms, it's important to be intentional about how you're going to use these. These are tools. These are tools meant to enrich your life, and if it's done correctly, as what we talked about before, it can be such an amazing experience to allow you to connect, and stay in touch with people that prior to this you wouldn't have been able to. And so like my main thing is taking inventory about like, all right, what is my outcome for this? And it's going to change, like as April mentioned, like maybe it started with this and maybe it's going to shift with this. So having periodic moments to like check in and say, is this still serving me? For me personally, I spend less time on Facebook, and I'm spending more time on LinkedIn. But for me, my intentions for both have changed, and how I use those change. And to April's point, uh, and Albert mentioned this too before. It's like, oh yeah, everyone into the pool. But now it's like, all right, well, I have I have an outcome for this platform, and I want to get certain things out of it, and I want to contribute certain things. And so, how can I best be of service and of influence, and then receive? And the main thing is just realize that you have power, to switch things up. This is your home, your digital home. Not everyone gets a seat at the table. Not everyone, and you shouldn't feel bad. I know I personally feel bad sometimes. They're like, oh my god, what if they see whatever?
I
Who
really
gives
want
a
to
fuck?
unfriend April, and I just don't
I
know
was like,
what she's gonna
April
think.
Schuler is life is so amazing. Oh my god.
Amazing in that she hasn't posted in 9 months.
Right? Oh my god. So she must be doing such amazing things because she's
No.
not on social media. I don't see her. So obviously things are quite amazing. I can't get rid of that. No, but
Yeah.
seriously, like I just feel like, yeah, that's a natural thing to feel bad, like, oh my god, what are they gonna think? But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, like, was it the people who matter don't care, or the people who don't matter will care? I don't know. Me in quotes. We're all over the place, but yeah, that's my contribution to it.
People who do care don't matter, and the people who don't care do matter. I don't know. That's where my
Something.
mind.
Yeah. Basically, if someone really cares to for you, and they're important, they're not going to care. They're gonna like to be honest. Like I know, like, if April were to come up to me like, hey, I unfriended you because I'm doing this X, Y, and Z. It's all good. Like I'm not tripping. Like me and April,
I
we're
wouldn't
good. We
know.
we 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 connect
Yeah.
other ways. There's
Yeah.
other ways to connect other than these
Maybe
platforms.
there's
So
too many too. Like we should have a conversation about like which messaging app should you use, because I am having that problem right now. But we won't. We'll leave that for offline because I know that we're about to wrap up. But I think this has been such an amazing conversation, and I think there's still so much more to dive into. But we felt that this was an important topic to go over because of the fact that sometimes people are like, oh, Facebook is, I hate it. It's doing this to me. And I mean, you even have the choice to not be on it at all. Like, I'm going to stay on there because I know that that's sometimes the only way that I can find somebody if I, if I need something that I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about this person. I mean, it's crazy. There's this person I went to high school with that like I just got connected to their sister, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that person, and I want to see how they're doing because I care. Um, but so I mean, there are good things that come of it, but you also don't need to be on it. And I think a lot of people are, you know, slowly starting to step away because it's just not serving them, and that's okay too. So if the project of trying to call your Facebook list or whatever platform you're on, or trying to get off your Twitter addiction is just too much, or the people that you're connected to on Twitter, if it's just too much to try to clean it up, you can just let it go as well.
Let
um,
it go. Let
but
it go.
let it go. So I wanted to wrap up with just all of us kind of saying like one last word of advice, or one big takeaway, that if you did not watch the last 55 minutes, this is the part that you can get the quick and dirty summary from each of us. So we'll each kind of share that. But we'll start. I'm going to start with Gary this time because I know that sometimes he doesn't go first, and then he's like, everybody said great stuff, so I'll go.
And then I was like, yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. So one big takeaway when it comes to, figuring out how to shape your social sphere, what's the word of advice or big aha or takeaway from this conversation?
Um, I'm going to start, since I'm going first, I'm going to start high level. And I know this like might seem like, oh, another to-do list, but if you're watching this, then you're one of us, and you are the type of person that want to like maximize anything that you can. So this is probably something that you do normally in other areas, so you should probably do this in this area, is take an audit of your of each of the platforms that you spend time on. And I know this is something you probably don't want to do, but find out how much time do you actually spend on that platform. Be honest with yourself, and take time to think about, what do you do on there? How does it currently make you feel when you're on there? And how do you want to feel? That is going to give you, in my opinion, some clarity and insights on what you need to do next.
Nice. Albert?
Two quick thoughts. One is, we didn't talk about taking a tech fast, but this is something that lots of people do world over, is just take the device, turn it off. I've actually taken all social media apps off my phone, so that's a start. But I recommend take a day, start with a day, and just turn it all off. And while you're doing that, you can get yourself some stamps and some envelopes and write a few holiday cards to friends. I tell you, it will bring more joy to the people in your life, and me. I'll happily provide my address. Than any other form of communication. It's been lovely speaking with both of you. I've really appreciated the conversation.
Awesome. And the last thing that I'll say is that, if you don't want to shape your community, you can also, as Albert was saying, find groups that that have some of the, if you don't want to try to define what you want, try to, think about like, well, that sounds nice. Let's just see how they've shaped it. And then here's the shameless plug for the Accountability Success Circle, which is, if you are somebody who like wants to achieve goals and still wants to be in like a social media sort of sphere, but is focused on positivity, open-mindedness, compassion, and togetherness, as our theme, and allow yourself to, grow personally in small little tidbits week by week, but also be celebrated for the accomplishments, and have some support and help through any struggles that you have in whatever goal it is, if it's personal or professional. Come join us. We are super fun, and we also are very light on posting, so it's not super overwhelming for people who want to dive in, but it is also a platform that you can take in and make your own, as long as you're positive. So check us out, accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. But otherwise, like, really, hope you guys have this amazing holiday season, as we're already kind of in the thick of it with Hanukkah and all that stuff. But, for those of you who celebrate Christmas and just getting ready for 2021, we appreciate you and hope that despite the ways that we have to be together, that you find some sort of togetherness as well. And I don't have anything else to say, but do you guys have any last final words?
That feels like a good place to.
Right? That's a good.
All right. Well, happy holidays, guys. See you next year with our episode 17. Is that what we're on for the ASC webinars? Stay tuned. We'll be announcing our theme very shortly. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.